Good evening, campers, dreamers, and babysitters. And yes, we have some pretty exciting news for you today. Now it's Monday, so obviously this could have waited maybe till the Sunday scaries, but by then it would have been old news and everybody would have covered it. And with it being Halloween, we figured, hey, why not take the time to do it? We're both off today, so we might as well celebrate that the fact that we finally, and I've been saying it for a little while, that something was on the horizon. I even said it last week that something was our last Sunday Scaries, that something was on the horizon for Friday the 13th. And we got some confirmation today. May not be what everybody was expecting, but it is still confirmation that we are moving forward with the series. We have some things coming down the pipeline, all exciting stuff. Just a couple hours ago, it was announced via Deadline Variety that a Friday the 13th prequel series called Crystal Lake has been ordered at Peacock from Brian Fuller and A24. So that is some pretty exciting shit. I mean, we've been talking, one of our earliest videos, we talked about the state of the Friday the 13th franchise, and we said one of the companies we'd love to see take over is A24, and now looks like we're getting an incarnation of that.
Yeah, and I think this can be by the news. This feels like it's going to be something extremely different. Now, I'm curious because
Mm-hmm.
of the whole legality of everything, and we're doing in a sense, a prequel uh, with the events and everything. Now, does that tie into the legal issues? Because I know what Victor Miller could do anything from that first film, so you can pretty much base this entire thing off the events in that first film and build. So I wonder if this could be interpreted as almost an independent project like that, where it's like they don't necessarily have to come together, right?
It's definitely leaning that way. So that's why I say it may not be the news that everybody was kind of looking forward to hearing, but the fact that we're getting new Friday the 13th like named projects is really good. It means that if this side of the argument can move forward, then I don't see why the Jason side can't be coming up pretty soon. Because this is essentially A24 is a studio that's going to be producing it on Peacock, while Victor Miller, who wrote the original screenplay, and Mark Toberoff and Miller's copyright authority, and Bob Barsamani, who produced the original movie, will all be executive producing the film or the show.
Okay.
So it's very much in Victor Miller's camp. And I get that all from Deadline. So that's what they are reporting right now. So it's not like I'm just pulling that out of my ass.
So I mean, like, does this show in terms of people wanting this to everyone to come together here and work out some sort of deal? Does this kind of show some bad news in that idea, saying that Victor Miller is taking his ball essentially and finding a market for it? So does this kind of even lessen those chances of something coming together with both camps and saying, hey, we're going to strike a deal here, since Victor Miller's kind of proving that, hey, I don't need anything after the first one. I can take those ideas and we can make a different property just based off of those ideas in that original screenplay.
I don't think so. I think that the Friday the 13th franchise is way too lucrative. We've discussed it a number of times that if this comes out, if we have a big Friday the 13th film coming out, it's no doubt in our minds that it would kill at the box office, that it would do
Absolutely.
amazingly, especially once you put Jason back in it. To me, this just seems like the first step of kind of where the legal stuff may have ended off in. I want to do a deep dive on that at some point. I want to go and do all the research I can, talk to whoever I can, and just see like where everything finally sits with it. I know that's something that I discussed with you all behind the scenes about maybe being a future video essay. But for me, reading this article, it kind of seems like, of course, this is probably going to be, they have to make it a prequel because Victor Miller only owns the first film. He can really only play with like Mrs. Voorhees and those characters there that were established in that film. And obviously, they can make new ones and do what they want with it. But to me, this does kind of give me the sense that, okay, if he's going to do this in his camp, we can still get Friday the 13th with Jason. So it's like if he's able to move forward with the project, then they can move forward with the project. Maybe they have to do some kind of licensing. Maybe they have to give him some kind of royalties to use the name Friday the 13th. But I still don't see why everything from 2 forward can't be used. You know what I mean? Especially at this point, we've said it 100 times. You don't really need to reestablish who Jason is. You don't need to sit here and harp on his backstory. If you just want to tell a straight story with the legend of Jason and keep it very vague, you can still bring a new audience in here and just have them experience it and experience, Jason Voorhees as we know him today.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, and it's still a murky situation here where, um, yes, Jason has become from 2 on, probably even more so 3 on, just because we get the iconic hockey mask and everything, kind of his own thing from that original screenplay. But it's like going into those films, this became Jason Goes to Hell, Jason X, Jason versus Freddy when, licensing and everything, and it wasn't Friday the 13th anymore. So Jason, a lot of people, I remember even growing up, a lot of people didn't even know the last name Voorhees. It was always Jason, Jason in the hockey mask. So to kind of, even if they decided to do their own property and say from 2 on, and not being able to call him Jason, I think is kind of, would seem very odd. I mean, yes, there you can tiptoe around it and maybe dance as much as you can. But the audience knows, okay, we can't actually call him Jason. For me, it's like I think you could lose yourself in the story enough, but that's always going to be in the back of my head where it's like I want to call him Jason, but we can't because we were never able to get this settlement here. So it's like one of those things where I think the Sean Cunningham can create another essentially the same thing, but not calling him Jason, it would just feel a little off to me because it's like, I want the complete version of my Jason Voorhees, but I can't call him Jason because of all the legal issues.
I still think that they'd be able to. I think again, if they've already settled this out in court, there was already decisions made. There's too much money on the table. I mean, for them to, if Victor Miller is really that much, against it, then like he's just going to tank his own projects like this, because
Well,
if that's really how it comes out and people aren't going to want to watch this because they're like, well, you're the one that's holding everything up. We've already seen how, fandoms and things like that can, with like, a couple of tweets really rip down an entire franchise. And so to me, I feel like it would just come down to money. It would just come down to them needing to pay him and his legal team, there's probably a number that any studio that picks this up would have to pay to use the name Jason and maybe even use the moniker Friday the 13th. At the end of the day, he was, from what I understand in the legal stuff, just mainly wanting to retain the rights to his original film and script, because he never liked how they went forward with Jason. He never liked that they brought him back, but he also, from some things that I've read, understands that that's an iconic character now.
yeah.
So
Uh,
it's like I feel like there is going to be some middle ground there, because money talks, my friend. And if he is able to produce a series, and have it his way, and I don't see why, Sean Cunningham and his camp can't do the same thing and have it their way. They just have to pay him some royalties.
But, and I think this thing has stalled because we have been down to dollars and cents here, where, and we'll move into conceptual things here in a minute. I know we're getting hung up on legal things, and it's kind of we don't know the granular things here. But from my understanding, Victor Miller has been hung up on getting a payout because he had that original script, and then after that, he didn't get anything from when they had started calling him or wearing the hockey mask, and this really became a big departure from that original script. And he didn't agree with what they did, but he also didn't see any money from it. So I thought he was asking for a good chunk of change from everything that has been made on the Jason Voorhees name that he did not get.
Bloody Disgusting just posted their article as we're recording this, so I can read this off to you. They go a little further than Deadline did. It was back in 2018 that a judge ruled that Victor Miller owns the rights to the original Friday the 13th screenplay in the United States. The decision Cunningham has failed to overturn in years that have followed. Cunningham, however, owns the character of adult Jason Voorhees, introduced in the later sequels, which is why the Peacock series can only take place as a prequel. So Cunningham does already own the Jason Voorhees name.
Yes.
So, I mean, if we go forward with that, At that point, you're just looking to license a title. And I think that, you get a big enough studio behind it, we can figure that out.
Yeah,
I mean, I think I know you're erring on the side of caution with it, and I'm very much excited and fanboying out right now. But I think that this is still a good sign. I think that everything is starting, the cogs are finally starting to turn, and we have our first official piece of Friday the 13th content that has been announced.
no, and I mean, like, I'm excited about it. I'm just kind of curious as where this is going to lead because I don't want, living through and being such a big fan of the Friday 13th franchise. I don't want to go into these films halfsies almost. You know what I mean? Where it's like we're like, oh yeah, well, you have to go to the Victor Miller side of things to get one half of the story, and then you have to go to the Sean Cunningham side to get the other half, where it's like I would just love to have this marriage where we don't have restrictions and we can kind of go on and do our own thing. I mean, I guess that time will tell on that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just kind of curious if hearing this news initially, I was like, oh, okay, so they're coming to some sort of agreement, and then I started thinking about it a little more, and I was like, well, this may mean that it's just the two sides are getting even farther apart because Victor Miller showing, hey, I don't need you to do something like that, and that kind of seems like what we're going with here, but I don't know. I guess we can get away from the legal issues because that's probably more so going to come out and probably change here within the next few months once more news comes out. But this kind of prequel here, I think is very intriguing. But I
Mm-hmm.
don't know where you go with it. Where is this going to be more so Pamela Voorhees' story? I mean, like for me, I don't know if I need to see Jason Voorhees as a kid.
And see, that's kind of where the questions lie right now. There's not enough information as of yet to really say where they're going to go with it. But I mean, the team they have behind it with someone like Brian Fuller, who we were just discussing before we recorded this, has a pedigree with shows like Hannibal, which is, from what I understand, isn't the first season of that show kind of a prequel to Silence of the Lambs? Or a
Yes.
good bit of it.
Yeah.
So, and then it kind of starts to tell those stories. I have never seen it, but I have heard nothing but amazing things about it.
And I've only seen the first season. I'll recommend the first season to everybody. And it's like I think I don't think there's any source material that he's really basing that off of. I think he kind of created his own kind of story and everything like that in terms of writing for the Hannibal character and the coming together that you do see kind of um, you know circumventing a little bit of the backstory and everything like that, which I found very interesting. So it's like he's clearly like when you're talking about people to create a prequel to Friday the 13th, especially in a more serial episodic way. I think he's definitely the right choice here, especially already kind of diving in the horror realm of things. I think it'll be interesting, but it's like one of those things where it makes sense to have him because again, this is going to be more so a character piece. I feel like where it's going to be
Mhm.
grounded way more, and especially with A24, it's probably going to be very. I don't want to say artsy, but very like it's going to have a gravitas to it. I think you know what I mean. It's not going to be. I don't think we're really going to be getting like kills and things like that for a lot of this. I think it's going to be a lot of different tone than what we're used to seeing from, especially like part two on.
Now, I think that you're right. This is going to be a little bit more grounded. It's going to be a bit more of a deeper, darker story. And I think the way that I would do this is that they talk about, Jason dying. That happened. That was something that happened years prior to the events of the first film. And
Yes.
they discuss how, there were multiple attempts to get this camp up and running before Steve Christie got to it. So it's one of those things where I'm like, that would I think be the story there, where it's like, you go through even maybe each season seeing a different attempt or, what happens there. And, whether it's Pamela Voorhees or, you kind of start kind of interweaving other characters, maybe she had help at some point, that's where I would want to go with it. And they could always mention that Jason died and everything, and that's her motivation. And we really get into her psyche of it because I think that's the scariest part of that first film is the performance with Pamela Voorhees there, because she's literally going around the camp talking like a child saying help me to lure kids in to get murdered. in some scenes, and I think that's really creepy. And I think that we get so lost with the Jason stuff and the hockey mask and everything, which we all love. I mean, don't get me wrong, that's great. But like, I think that was really the true horror to that first original idea. And to kind of dive a little deeper into that, I'm almost curious to see where they go with it. And I'd like to maybe see different iterations of this camp leading up to when Steve Christie was able to get his hold on it, where they kind of designated it as Camp Blood. Maybe that whole first season is them leading up to the death of Jason Voorhees, and you can see him almost getting tortured, and you could see him, being bullied and everything that goes on there. But you also dive into where Mrs. Voorhees was with that and everything. Now, I know you don't really like this idea, but I know there was a script going around talking about introducing Elias Voorhees, which
Yeah.
would be his father. So, I mean, with A24 backing it, I think I'd be a little more open to an idea like that, where you kind of get to see his home life a little bit more. Maybe they don't have to, you know, beat you over the head with everything and get too deep into the minutia, but you could at least have more of a mentioning of what Jason's home life was, or in it you could really frame it all through the eye of Pamela Voorhees. Like maybe she was in an abusive relationship, maybe there's a little bit more to why Jason came out deformed and everything like that. Maybe something happened during the birth to cause that. Like there's all kinds of ways you could take this, and I think it's a very interesting idea.
And as we're speaking about it here, I still have my stance of I don't need to see Jason Voorhees as a kid. I think as we're talking about it, how I would love for this to open up is them dragging the lake.
Hmm.
And what does Pamela Voorhees's day look like the next day? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And that's where we pick up of her already dealing with the death of her son. She can even dive deep into they never found his body, and that kind of becomes a little more unhinged there because, as we talk about that first film, and, we had just done Better Off Dead with Jaws the Revenge, and how we got into those Jaws films and how, the original Jaws is so good, where Jaws 2 is good, but it's just not as good as the first. So in comparison, it doesn't look great just because you're comparing it to such an iconic piece. And when we look at Friday the 13th here, and a lot of people forget about where this franchise started because of the pop culture juggernaut that Jason Voorhees became with the hockey mask. That when we go back to that first film, it's maybe not everyone's cup of tea because it's not what the form that we're used to. It's very different. But when you look at that first film, Pamela Voorhees is a very hefty character in terms of unpacking different things, and where we see, I guess, the finished product in a sense, where she's went through all of these things, and this is what we're seeing now. And then we're only with her till the end, which spoiler, she gets her head cut off. But it's like what happened up until those events. So I think as you were speaking about it, I think the story, what happens after Jason's death and
Hmm.
opening up that town, and maybe we see a character that I'm not for seeing Jason's father. I think in terms of,
It could be implied, you know what I
yes,
mean? Like
we
they
just
really
see a
lean
character.
into it.
Yeah, we could always see a character. We can even see multiple characters in town that are never really named, and
And
it's
she
just
just
always
has
like,
kind of like a passing relationship with some of them where it's like we
yes.
never know who, but we could see shades of it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
So it's like we can always open up a lot of doors and don't necessarily have to nail down the questions or the answers to the questions, where it's like it could have been this guy, it could have been that guy. So we're telling these compelling stories here without actually marrying ourselves to any particular idea. I think could be very interesting.
Now, I got to ask, because I was just doing a little bit of research. I have two picks. I know that, I'm kind of springing this up on you. But do you have a casting decision in mind for who you'd like to see play a younger Pamela Voorhees?
No, I haven't thought about it that much, and as I'm trying to even picture, as I was saying, what Pamela Voorhees's day looks like the next day, and I honestly, nothing's coming to mind right now.
Now, I'm going to hit you with a couple. One of them being, and I think maybe both of them have worked with A24. I can't say for certain for one, but I know one has worked extensively with them. I would like to see Nicole Kidman.
I think that would be an interesting choice.
Yeah, I think with the short hair
Yeah,
and everything, watching her
she definitely bring a
witness
certain
that,
gravitas to that role as well.
and she's very well established in the A24 department. She's worked with Yorgos Lanthimos and other people like that before. And then also, I got to throw it to Charlize Theron. I think that she could also bring that kind of maddening gravitas to it as well. Maybe a little too young by standards right now. Maybe Nicole Kidman's kind of right around that perfect age for it. But, that's just where my head went, just kind of trying to piece together real quick here who we could see cast in that role.
No, yeah, I think Nicole Kidman would actually be a spot on choice for that. Just she brings a uh, eh, name value to the property already. So it's like, if you cast someone like Nicole Kidman, I think A24 being attached as well already kind of gives us a certain kind of air to it, saying, okay, this is probably going to be a project that is going to be taken care of in a particular sense. Whereas if you attach someone like Nicole Kidman to it, it's like, oh, okay, so they're really trying to tell a story here. It's not going to be our smash and slash kind of random Friday the 13th stuff here. This is really we're going into this really trying to tell a story, which is what I think. Like you said, maybe this isn't what everyone was expecting, but I think this is intriguing news nonetheless to say we're going to expand the universe here. And as we're talking about this more so, I think that timeline from Jason's death to the events of the original Friday 13th, there's a lot to unpack there. You can take that day by day, you can take it week, month, whatever, and there's a lot of events that you can kind of create your own timeline in there without really meddling with that original film.
And then, so this another part of this article that I wanted to bring up here is that Brian Fuller has been developing this Friday the 13th project since 2013. So this is something that he's been in the weeds with for a while. Obviously, there's not much he could do with the legal battle and everything going on. So it's just kind of been on his own to kind of work on this stuff. But apparently, he's been developing it since then. So I mean, by then you think he's got to at least have a roadmap of some sort of where this is going to go and how this is going to go. I hope that doesn't just turn into kind of like how a lot of series have been going, not necessarily series, but more trilogies of film as of recently, where it just kind of seems like, oh, we have a roadmap, and I'm poking at Halloween here when I say that, where it's like we're going to do this, and that. So hopefully this is all figured out. Now, with that in mind, he is serving as writer, showrunner, and executive producer. I'm sure he's going to direct a few episodes because it looks like he's at least directed the most recent miniseries for the history of queer horror on Shudder. So I'm sure that he's going to kind of want to get into something like that, maybe. But I would like to see, even if we just want to pull out of the A24 catalog here, who are some directors that you'd like to see handle some of these episodes?
Oh man. We just recently talked about him. Jeremy Saulnier, I think, would be very interesting to kind of take a stab at a few different things here. Just the world building alone and kind of the uniqueness that he does bring. And I mean, Yorgos Lanthimos would be a fun pick.
That would be an interesting one. That would be
Just
really surreal.
I would really. It depends on what kind of tone they want to go here too. Again, with A24 being attached, you really don't know what you're gonna get. You know what I mean? Because what they've done, Green Room,
Mm.
and they've done Lamb. You know what I mean? Where it's like, who knows what you can get? I'm more intrigued to see, like, once they name that type of stuff. I think we'll have a better understanding of tone, but yeah, I think this is up in the air in terms of who we're gonna get. I think A24 being attached though really does open this up to say we're gonna have legitimate people attached to this. I could really see this being almost a I don't want to say bidding war in a sense, but I can see their phone ringing off the hook to say, "Hey, can I direct an episode?" You're doing a Friday 13th property with this kind of near and dear to a lot of directors' hearts now, because kind of growing up with it. That I could really see this being almost their choice to say, "Yeah, we want this person." They just have a giant list of this person, that person, this person, because I think everyone's going to want to take their stab at least one episode here.
And, a couple names that I'm going to throw out there. I think a good fit for this, and I think that he's only gone to prove that more this year with his two films, is Ty West. I think that he'd understand the property and the tone if they wanted to stick closer to that original style of Friday the 13th. I know that's kind of a safe bet considering everybody compared at least X to Texas Chainsaw Massacre and how well that emulated that. But again, I pick him because he was able to pivot so well and make Pearl kind of its own thing.
Yeah.
And it's more of a whimsical, more of a, as it was described when it was releasing, the Wizard of Oz meets Psycho kind of thing. Other people, again, I think Jeremy Saulnier would be great. Obviously, I'm going to throw a few big guys out here that I don't think would touch it, but maybe even if we get into a few seasons down the road and we get like an Ari Aster who really goes into an episode where we're really diving deep into Pamela's, kind of grief with Jason and everything.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Robert Eggers. I don't think he'd ever touch a Friday the 13th because it just doesn't seem like it's in his wheelhouse.
You,
Nor do I think that we'd get it from Ari, but those would be interesting picks. I'd love to see a wide berth, a wide pool here.
and I know you don't think we would get them, but I mean, like, these are probably going to be, let's say, 60 minutes at most.
We can hope.
So I'm just saying, like, for someone to say we're doing a prequel for Friday 13th, we want you to direct an episode, and it's 60-minute thing. It's not, you only have to do one. It's not a huge commitment. So can you come down and do it? I think a lot of people are going to be jumping at the chance to do it. So it's like we could see. I fully expect to see a lot of A-listers in terms of directing, kind of just an A-list lineup here in terms of who they can get to direct these, because I think a lot of people are going to be itching just to live in the space and kind of take a stab at that property, because again, it's been on the sidelines for so long, no one's really had the opportunity to do so. So it's like, I think what we're off to an intriguing start here, and it's got a lot of potential.
Yeah, and then one more name I wanted to throw out there would be Jennifer Kent.
Yes,
Yeah, I
that
think
would
that
be
she'd bring
interesting.
a lot of good. I think that she could hit that tone really well. I know
Yeah.
she hasn't really directed anything that's been that close to it, more surreal stuff, but the brutality that she brought to the Nightingale, would be interesting to see that translate over into something like this, especially since we're dealing with a grief-stricken mother character, which we don't even know if we are at this point, but our minds are racing. This is big news. This is something that we've been waiting for, at least an official, hey, we're getting the ball rolling with something Friday the 13th related. And it's here and it's happening Halloween 2022. They delivered today. I mean, this is great. It's not, like I said, what everybody was kind of hoping for and expecting. Of course, we wanted some kind of little snap tease of just like the hockey mask and everybody saying, oh, we're getting another Jason Voorhees movie. But I still think that that's on the table. I think we just might have to wait a little while longer, but who knows? We could hop on our live stream this evening and then everything changes. So,
Yeah, and just to touch back onto the Jennifer Kent pick there, even she directed the Babadook, so it's like, even again, we don't know what we're dealing with, but as you're talking about a grief-stricken mother, even psychological issues there, and what she could bring to that in terms of playing visually, I think would also be pretty interesting. But like you said, we don't know. This is probably going to be forever changing for at least the next few weeks, so I'm sure we're going to touch on this. Even though we did this little kind of update right now, I'm sure this will be a talking point on Sunday Scaries as well.
oh yeah, and we'll probably talk a little bit more on there. We might even have some more news by then. It's tough to say, but as things come out, maybe we'll hear a little bit of something from somebody, and then we can kind of run with it. But yeah, this was just exciting. We were just getting on here to discuss, the slashes and suplexes, Brian Wyatt stuff. Unfortunately, for those of you who have seen it, that's great. But for those who didn't, it was struck down by the WWE. So we are working to dispute that. So stick with us. We are trying to get that back up and running for you guys. It will be there at some point. But until then, we don't know.
Yes,
So
we're
this just kind of blindsided us, I would say.
yeah, I thought we were in the clear after a day of trying to get everything figured out. I thought we were good to go, and then we got a little update just a couple hours ago, and that kind of caught us both off guard. They're patrolling apparently, but it is what it is. it'll be out in some iteration. We're really hoping that this original form, well, kind of an original form already. We already had to kind of alter it a little bit before its debut. So we're hoping that this iteration will make its way out. I mean, I have a couple things to be able to pivot to, but we will see. It will be out here, yeah, hopefully soon.
Yeah, so keep an eye on the social medias. We'll be updating you guys as we get updates on that. And yeah, it's a learning experience for us. WWE doesn't mess around apparently, but hey, that's the beauty of it. We're gonna work hard to get that there for you guys. But other than that, you guys can keep up with us on our social medias at TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter at SplattercastPod. As well as keep an eye out if you're just tuning into us for the first time. Feel free to hit that subscribe button. We're working hard to produce a lot of great content here. And yeah, there's going to be a lot more Friday the 13th and Jason updates as we move forward. Once we get that movie, I'll probably be doing update videos every single week until that damn thing releases, if I can.
We've been waiting for so long.
I know. Jason's my boy. Anything Friday the 13th, I am down for. But yeah, other than that, guys, keep an eye out for our live stream of the Black Phone where we're officially doing our giveaway. Only a few entries in that, so if you want to get a chance to win a Splatterthon mug and a copy of the Black Phone, today is your last day, so you got till about 8 o'clock to do that. So go ahead and enter into that. Just say what your favorite horror film is. There's a link in the description. But yeah, I guess other than that, Luke, you got anything else for him?
No, I mean, we'll see you here in a little bit back again for the live stream.
Alrighty, guys. Well, until next time, I'm Dylan Newell.
And I'm Luke Janesco.
And remember, stay scared.